The gifts you've been given were not yours to keep. The gifts you've been given are meant to be given away to other people. Well, good morning and welcome. My name is Amanda Kaufman, and I am so excited to bring to you a whole conversation about your coaching superpower. And today, we're going to be going deep on something that could really change the way that you see yourself and how others will see you as well. Right? And we're going to be talking about how do you unlock your unique coaching power. So if you've ever looked around and thought, what makes me different? You feel like you kind of fade into the background from so many louder voices online. Like, this is for you. And this is also for me from when I started my business like 8 years ago. I wrestled with the same thing. I was like, why would somebody want to learn from me? Why would somebody want to get into coaching with me? And, one of the biggest lucky breaks that I had in my career was that I got to work for a really big, prominent brand. But when I went to go do my own thing, and I wanted to become an entrepreneur, I really struggled because I knew how valuable that brand was. I knew how valuable having that army of people who knew what they knew, how valuable that was to different organizations. If you've ever just sort of felt like maybe you are invisible or that you feel like it's a bit inconsequential, then make sure you tune in here. Because here's the deal. There are thousands and thousands of coaches online, but there's only one you. And your coaching superpower is probably something you don't even know that you do. When I very first started posting online, being online, letting people know, hey, my name's Amanda, I'm a coach, I want to coach you. I was very reserved about it. I was really nervous about what the mean people would say on the mean internet streets. And, over the years, I'm here to tell you, there have been a couple of people, but there have been so many thousands more who were kind, who were enthusiastic about what I was talking about, who were, great references, as well as amazing clients, fast forward. So even if you run into a couple of people along the way that are, maybe they were never taught their manners, we'll put it that way. Look, most people want to see other people succeed. That's my, I know how scary it can be to be torn down or canceled or whatever you're worried might actually happen to you. And I understand that, but I think that when you get really clear about your superpower, you start to realize that the gifts you've been given were not yours to keep, right? The gifts you've been given are meant to be given away to other people. So, it could be how you create safety in a conversation that allows somebody to access their vulnerability and really open up. It could actually be how you pull truth from the conversations that you have. It could be just like this feeling that you give people that every session you do, it's like this big clarity moment, the clouds part, the choirs sing. Maybe you have something about your technique that makes your coaching just absolutely irresistible. And if you're not claiming this superpower, here's what happens. Your content ends up ringing hollow. Your marketing is going to be so hard because you're not going to be able to say what makes you different. You're not going to be able to say what makes working with you so beneficial. And it's just going to come across a little generic. And so that is what really causes people to scroll past your brilliance. So how do you actually identify what your superpower is? Most coaches at a surface level, when I ask them this question, they say, I'm a really great listener. I care a lot. I've been there. And I think those are great places to start. But I want you to go even deeper because every coach says they're a good listener. What do people actually thank you for? Even outside of coaching. So, for my life, people thank me for being candid. People thank me for anticipating their needs. People thank me for, sharing my research, sharing my templates and frameworks. People thank me for that sort of thing all the time. And so, I've learned from helping a lot of people that the way that I help is I help with the pathway. And the way that I help is I make the pathway way more accessible, right? Because a lot of people, they're given instructions on exactly what they need to do, but for whatever reason, it's not actually accessible. Hey man, nice to see you here. So what do people tend to thank you of, like even outside of what you start out coaching? What transformation keeps repeating in your clients' stories? So this is one reason that I'm always saying, like, get out there, get as many clients as possible, get into the movement. So what's the transformation that keeps repeating in your clients' stories? In mine, it is almost universally more confidence, more bold action, more courage activation. I notice this over and over and again, people being able to trust themselves, trust their own research, trust their own path. That's a huge transformation that whether I'm helping you with your business or I'm helping you as a high performance client, like that's the thing always is people find their voice. They learn to speak up. They learn to have boundaries. They learn to advocate for what they want. And like, dang, I'm here for it. It's awesome, right? But what transformation keeps repeating in your clients' stories? Third big question is, what comes really naturally to you that other people find really difficult? So something that comes really naturally to me is pattern recognition. I'm super good with it. Like I can see patterns and connections and relationships between things that a lot of people miss. And not only am I good at like identifying the pattern, I'm really good at codifying it in a way that makes it obvious to other people. So that allows me to teach people how to do things repeatedly with success because we found the patterns in success. So that comes to me very naturally. What comes to you very naturally, right? Because what comes to you very naturally that other people find difficult, that is your superpower. This is where you look beyond like your certifications, your qualifications, and you start seeing things about your character. It's also things that you see about your patterns, your energy, and you don't need to add to be more powerful. You just need to own what already works. And I think like if there was something that I would say to my former self, my younger self, is like, stop having so much judgment for your status in the world. Stop having so much judgment for, the fact you're a suburban mom, or the fact that you're new in town, or the fact that you're too young or too old or too this or too that. I think when we take ourselves out of the game because we have judged ourselves as being too much one way or another, like that's honestly one of the biggest saboteurs of coaching in general, is the coach has kind of contempt for who they are and where they are. But if you can really radically accept that, you are going to be in such a different position to be able to activate your courage and activate your boldness. Okay. So, wherever you happen to be watching this, go ahead. There you go. Problem solving based on client discovery. I love that. Yes. That is a wonderful superpower. So let me know in the comments, what is one word that describes your coaching style, right? Is it like curious? Are you fierce? Are you nurturing? Are you very clear? Are you very strategic? I've been told I'm very energetic. I'm an energetic coach. I bring a lot of energy. Are you very strategic? Like, what is that one word that describes your coaching? So go ahead and leave that in the comments. And I do loop back on the replays, right? Awesome. So we've got curious, nurturing, and energy. That's so good. So out of those three, though, curious, nurturing, and energy, which one do you think, like, even on a bad day, you'd be pretty good at? What's the one? Because like the superpower is going to be the thing that shows up even on rainy days, even on cloudy days, even on bad days. What's that one that you definitely still do? And by the way, if you're catching this on the replay, still leave a comment because I really want to know this. Very tactical and very analytical and very curious. That's wonderful. Awesome. Like if I was to say like one, it's definitely energy, right? High energy. So, and if you're just joining us, we're dropping in the comments one word that just describes your coaching style. So curious. I love that. That's a really, really good one. So like, I guess as a curious coach, you're probably somebody who asks one more question, and gets to that next level of clarity. That's what I'm guessing. And for the very tactical person, I'm guessing that you probably write things down for people, or you might use like a spreadsheet or an analytical tool to really like illustrate exactly what they need to know, right? That's actually different. Not everybody does that, right? Same thing with curiosity. Not everybody asks another question. I've worked with a lot of coaches over the years, and many coaches that are super experienced and actually very, very good, they're not terribly curious, right? Because they've already decoded a process that really, really works. They've already kind of validated the thing, so they don't demonstrate their curiosity as much. But that could be potentially off-putting to someone. It might be more beneficial for your particular client if they feel like they're really being seen. So your curiosity as your superpower is a real asset that you might want to really emphasize in your marketing and in your sales. Yeah, questions are absolutely key to unfolding the issues. And I would say that that's a universal skill. Coaches really should ask questions, right? They should ask, empowering questions. They should be leading through their questions, right? Like question asking is for sure a superpower of a coach. Okay, so continuing on, if it really clicked for you that like you have something special, you have a unique perspective, you have a particular way, a particular style, how can you emphasize that style in your social media, right? So, one of our amazing clients inside of Clients Over Chaos, which you can join at next5clients.com, one of our amazing community members says she's curious. She's a very curious person. Well, how would I translate that to social media presence? Question of the day, right? Contemplation of the week. Right? Maybe because you're so curious, you might do research and then you simply sum up what you learned in your weekly newsletter, right? So you can activate that superpower into everything that you do in your business. And now you're going to have so much more confidence, and there's going to be high congruence and high authenticity in what you do, right? If you're watching this on Instagram, I want to know what's your one word that describes like you as a coach. In terms of really activating this differentiation and embracing like why you are different, it's super important, because if you feel like you're drowning in the sea of sameness online, if you feel like there's no real reason why someone would choose to invest in coaching with you versus going on a vacation or versus hiring somebody else, I'll never forget early on in my coaching career, I was still learning how to sell. And this woman said, I'd love to work with you, but I need to invest in a new rug. Right? She wanted to replace the carpets in her house. And I was like, I feel like you're not all that excited by the coaching. I feel like you're not, right? And at the time, I had a harder time really owning my superpower of bringing a lot of energy. I had a hard time really owning the curiosity of like what was driving that person to want to work with me. Okay, genuine. Okay, we got another word. Let's workshop this word, genuine. Okay, genuine. How is that a superpower? Let's go into it. So maybe genuine could be a willingness to share, tough truths, right? So that could be genuine. Genuine could be that you're a person who expresses your emotions, readily, and then that gives other people access and permission to do the same thing. Yeah. So I would say, if genuine is your superpower, then I'd be looking for stories on stories on stories, on social media, real stories, of things that have either happened or things that are happening, and your genuine response to those things without, and here's the really key thing, without feeling the need to defend it. I think part of genuine is like a kind of a trust, a self-trust and a confidence. And how that translates to coaching is that somebody would feel that they can be real and be genuine with you, right? So they will tell you the genuine truth. So I think really showcasing how you receive someone's genuine truth and how you really activate someone's permission to be themselves would be really, really powerful. Absolutely. Yeah. Without the need to defend it. Because I think like people in the coaching spaces, especially, they often say, I'm so authentic, right? But you could just tell that they're, totally made up is the only way that they show up online. They are using filters. They are using, all the copywriting tricks in the messaging, and they're not real. Like, you're not sure who is really like saying that. They never make a mistake. They never own a mistake. They never own like the challenges. They only call people up. Right. And I think that's a great one, a good superpower, being genuine. That's so good. Let's see. I'm going to go check over in our Clients Over Chaos chat. Yeah. Trust does work both ways. That's super true. I think one of the reasons why it can be very hard to showcase your superpower as a coach is because you may not trust the person that you're showing it to. You may not trust the person that you're showing it to. And especially if you're showcasing these things online, right? Because you're basically declaring to the general public, this is who I am and how I am. This is who I am and how I am. And you want to know something super crazy, you guys? I had a long weekend and a slow start to a Monday. So I stuffed my hair under a baseball cap, no makeup today, just like here, because it's 9:00, it's Monday, and that's my discipline. That's my practice. That's what I do. I show up. Right? I would say that's another superpower of mine. I have very high show up, right? Doesn't really matter how I'm feeling. I have very high show up, very good discipline with time and consistency. And I've had multiple clients remark on that. But I want to tell you something. As part of my commitment to consistency with being present on social media and being present online, I would go for walks and I would just aim the camera at my face and just talk about whatever. And I call these my walk and talks, right? So they're not produced, they're not edited. I'm just speaking truth, right? Through my Instagram and through my Facebook. And wouldn't you know it, how many people have come back to me and said, yeah, those walk and talks. They reference back to the walk and talks. So I think like telling the truth without feeling like I have to be fancy is also a bit of a superpower. It's a superpower because I can just like turn on the camera, tell the truth. I don't have to dress it up. It just is what it is. And I think that can create, some people hate that because a lot of people really like very produced sort of experiences. But you know what? My clients, my raving fans, they like the walk and talks. And I'm like, amazing. I'm going to do the walk and talks, right? So it's more about using the superpower than it is about, what kind of camera I'm using or what kind of microphone I'm using or any of that. So let's see, we got a question over here on the gram. Sometimes people think I'm justifying myself and over explaining. Any idea why? Well, not having seen any of the content, I really can't speak to like the particular content that you might be talking about. But I would say if you're getting that feedback from people, then you might just look at it. Right. And whenever I look at feedback from people, I always think like, what's their credibility to speak to the topic, right? What's their investment in my success? Like, are they invested in my success and they're giving me that feedback and it's maybe hard to hear, but it's constructive, right? Then in that case, I might take a look at the content and just see if I'm trying to defend myself too much. Right? If it's coming from somebody that you has a history of like not necessarily being invested in your best interests, like not necessarily being considerate of your feelings and not necessarily being supportive of your entrepreneurial dreams, I would say I'd turn the volume down on those people, right? Because sometimes people are critical because that's the only way they know how to connect. Right? They can only connect through complaining. And if it's that kind of feedback, I would say don't give it another thought. But if it is coming from somebody that you like, you trust, you believe that they are, I call these people champions, the good people that want to champion your success. If you're getting that feedback from a champion, I would really slow down and take a look and just really observe, or even run it through ChatGPT. Someone said that this post kind of sounded a little bit like victimhood, or kind of sounded a little like I was over explaining myself. Can you analyze this and tell me what you would say if you were a social media expert? I would run that through the chat GPT if I was really all that, concerned about it. The other thing you can do is and again, in a trusted relationship, you can always just ask for clarity. It's like, really, what part of it did you feel like I was over explaining? And if they're your champion, they can handle the probing question. If there's somebody who is, like I said, in the habit of complaining, complaint is their main communication style, then I probably wouldn't spend a lot of time on that. But just like shameless plug, if you join my community, the First 5 Club, one of the perks is you can post your stuff within, 24 hours a day, and I can take a look at it. And it is very inexpensive to join us. So if you would like to join the waiting list to come into the First 5 Club, just say First 5 and I'll make sure that you're on the early notification list because we're going to be opening the doors very soon. So yeah, super. I think that, I just read your question more closely. You said, sometimes people think I'm justifying myself. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Just a double check here. Did they say that you're overthinking? Did they say that you're over-explaining? Did they say that you're justifying yourself? Or do you think they will say that? Because those are two very different things. I used to think that people thought certain things about my marketing, about my business, about my practice, about my life. I used to think that people thought these things. And what I realized is I thought those things. And I was projecting it onto people. Now, they might have still thought those things, right? But if they haven't said that, I'd really just double check that we're not feeling insecure. We're not feeling like we're going it too alone. Just double check on those things because I've been there, and it usually came from when I didn't have a mentor and I didn't have somebody that was feeding back to my success enough. So yeah, perfect. Now, I want to wrap up today to just tell you something really important about your superpower. You just don't have to shout about it to be seen. Speak. You need to speak. You need to be visible, but you don't have to be crazy. You don't have to twerk. You don't have to make AI videos. You don't have to you do not have to jump up and down, hold your breath till you're blue in the face. You don't have to eat cinnamon or whatever it is that the kids are doing these days. You don't have to shout to be seen. Okay? You just have to own your power and own it every day. I think the bigger factor, less so than you being really flashy, the bigger factor is, are you present every day? When I first started in 2016 or so, you could get away with posting a few times a week, right? Nowadays, I would say if you're really serious, like you really want to get clients and build a thing and it's more than just sort of a background, like I would even argue, and I've trained my own children on this, that everyone has to have a personal brand these days, whether they are working as an employee or whether they are an entrepreneur, but it goes double for you as an entrepreneur. That your presence and your visibility online and your demonstrated commitment to your topic and your expertise, it's becoming non-negotiable. That it's more of a daily thing, or at the very least a Monday through Friday thing. And, I think the last thing is, if you have gifts, if you have superpowers, they're not for you. This is something I heard. I can't even remember who said it to me, a mentor years ago. They said, your gifts are not for you. Your gifts were given to you to give to other people. And I cannot think of anything that is more rewarding than getting to give your gifts. I love coaching. Later today, I'm going to get to do certified high performance coaching with my community, the Experts Network. Just shout out 10 if you want the details about my group coaching program. But every single week we do high performance coaching. And I get such a high. Like, the feedback is always so good. People have breakthroughs on breakthroughs on breakthroughs as they're building their business and developing their leadership and all of that kind of thing. But we coach 3 times a week in that program. And of course, it's optional. I mean, you can show up when you want to show up. We're never going to force you to build a business. You've got to want it. But the Monday calls, the high performance calls, they are so good. And then on Wednesdays, we do office hours. Same thing. I'm giving my gifts. I'm giving my wisdom. I'm giving my experience. And it's like, it felt so good to earn that experience, personally, but it is orders of magnitude more exciting to be able to gift those forward and pay those lessons forward. And so that's what I get to do on Wednesdays. And then on Fridays, we have co-working sessions. So that's one of our favorite coaching sessions as well, because it's less so about, speculating about what to do or thinking about what to do or problem solving what to do. It's like literally roll up the sleeves and do it together. And, that it's a facilitated co-working session so that you're guaranteed every single week you're going to have major progress in your business, because it's so good. You're basically sharing your focus with other people in the community, and it really addresses that loneliness that many coaches are experiencing as they're trying to just YouTube their way into building a successful business. Yeah, just shout out 10 for the Experts Network. You just send me a message with the word 10, and I'll share with you details about this group coaching program. It is very well reviewed. We're super excited to continue to offer it. And yeah, if you're like, I need somebody that can look at my social content, tell me the truth, I need somebody that's going to imbue energy into me, then this is the program for you. But anyway, if anybody needs the recording for today, if you've got a friend who would really love the replay from today's session, make sure you send them to next5clients.com. That's next5clients.com. next5clients.com, and that will redirect them to our community, Clients Over Chaos, where every single day we've got motivational audios about 5 minutes long called the Daily Spark that will lift you forward and keep you moving forward for your coaching business and help you choose your clients over the chaos of your life. And until next week. Oh, and I like telling you guys what's coming up next week. So next week, we are going to be continuing our conversation on how to move from invisible to influential. We're going to be talking very specifically about how do you master your online presence. So that's coming up next week, 9 a.m. Central. Make sure you mark your calendars. Make sure you tell your friends. And again, we post and stream live to our Clients Over Chaos community every single week, including the replay. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you very soon.